Welcome, everybody, as we cheers to 10 years with 17 Hats. I'm Amanda Ray, your host, and I am joined by 17 Hats member and 17 Hats ambassador, Eric Hartmann. Eric, thanks so much for being here with me today.
Thank you.
I am excited to bring you his journey, his story of how he has found success in small business over the last, 10 years? Eric, let's just dive in. Tell me a little bit about you. How long have you been in business? What do you do?
So I've been in business since 2002, so we're going on 22 years now. Full time with my business since 2013, and I do video production, photography, motion design. Work with a lot of pharmaceutical ad agencies, a lot of small businesses, a lot of marketing agencies, and things like that. So yeah, keeps me busy.
I love it. I love it. So how did your business, I mean, you've been doing it for a long time. How did you get started in it?
So I actually kind of got tossed into it,
That's the
and
best place.
yeah, I was an accidental entrepreneur, as it's kind of called. So I was actually working for a comedian back in 2007, 2008, and that was my only full-time job out of college. And I was doing a little bit of video work in high school and college and whatnot. And then he was like, "All right, I got to close up shop, and are you going to be okay?" And I said, "Sure," because I was freelancing on the side, working with an ad agency. And so it was okay. I'm just gonna go and jump into this. So I'm newly married. My wife doesn't have a full-time job. We've got an apartment, got a dog. Like I gotta just hold the reins here and make it work. So juggling all those things is really difficult. So I mean, I was working with a bunch of different software platforms and invoices and Word docs and everything. And
All
I'm
the
like, I don't
stuff.
know how to manage all this. Um, and so it was really difficult to do that, but that was just kind of like what I did. So, but yeah, I really just got thrown into the whole entrepreneur, doing my own business kind of thing.
That's really cool though, because it is one of those things that you just don't like what's happening. Is it happening? Is it not happening? How's it going? What are you going to do? And you just kind of have to just level out all of those worries in your head and just go, we got to make it happen. Like it doesn't matter. This is going, this is occurring.
Yeah, like it or not, I had to just do it. So yeah, I mean, I was like, I could go full time with somebody else, but I said, no, you know what? We'll see how this works. It's fine.
I get asked a lot, like people that are moving from like hobbyist to full time, people are always like, what's the right time? When should I do it? And there's a portion of me that always says, well, there's never really the right time, right? I can
Mhm.
give you all the advice in the world. Like, what's your thought on that question? Now, having been successful for so many years, is there ever a right time to start a business or to go full time?
I mean, it's hard because looking back now, like I've got two kids, right? My sons are 7 and 5. So right now, if that were to happen to me and I've got my kids, I think I would be looking at it a little bit differently than when I didn't have
Sure.
kids. But I mean, I think that there's not really the best time to do it because I feel like the more that you overthink things, the more that you're like waiting for that perfect opportunity. Meanwhile, you're letting everything else kind of like pass you by.
Yeah.
So I'm a big advocate of like not necessarily jumping at the very first opportunity, but just knowing
Sure.
like, you know what, I've got to have a leap of faith here and just know that it's going to work out. So
Yeah.
I don't think that there's a right time for it. I think that there's still a bit of strategy that's involved in it in terms
Sure.
of making sure that you're going to be safe to fall if you need to.
Yeah, risk reward, right? Like is the risk, is the reward greater than the risk type situation? And there's always the foundation to put in too to make sure that you're successful. So
Absolutely.
let's talk a little bit about foundation in business. For you, what was that? You're young, you're getting into it, you're kind of being thrown into it. How did you get this like up and moving and going? What were some of those foundational things for you?
So it's interesting. So I was on another podcast a long time, not a long time ago, but earlier this year. It was talking about like, okay, what's your business background? Like, how did you like do contracts and like, how did you know like what's your business plan? I'm like, what? Sorry, business plan? So I never had a business plan, never knew really like what to do. So in terms of the
Huh.
foundation, I mean, I was working for this comedian for a while. I didn't really have a business background. I took like a couple of business classes in college, but didn't really know what to do. So back then, I mean, YouTube was really just starting to come about, and the whole Facebook thing. So it was like learning from people, figuring out like, okay, what's a good move to make? What's the right thing? Like, what have people done What can I do differently? Um, so my foundation was really just kind of like flying by the seat of my pants, honestly, which is kind of scary to think of. Yeah,
But I love because for so many people, that's it. Like
yeah,
most solopreneurs don't have a business plan, right? They didn't sit there and create a long-winded document. That didn't occur. And I meet so many people that think I have to have a business plan. I have to have this and I have to have this for solopreneurship. And yes, while I think it's a good idea to understand where you're going and understand what you're doing and understand some goals there, I don't think it's completely necessary to have this huge drawn out business plan. I think sometimes just what
yeah.
you did, grit and making it happen, um, is the key sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And learning from those mistakes, like whatever mistakes you're making along the way, learning from those and moving on
Dude,
from them and not making the same things.
that I think is a hard one for people,
Yeah.
right? Because we tend to blame our clients. We tend to blame a lot of other people instead of going, okay, let me learn from this and let me make this better. Um, do you have any examples of how you did that in your business or any like aha moments that's like, oh, this isn't necessarily them. This is a me issue and I need to fix this?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a lot of like following up with prospective clients. It was a lot of keeping track of, okay, when did I send them something? Um, it's that kind of thing that I was just kind of like tough about because it was just, myself. There's so many other solopreneurs out there. It's like you have you. That's it. Like I don't have an assistant. Yeah. It was hard juggling that, but following up and knowing like, hey, okay, I emailed that proposal out, didn't hear back, but then it kind of like in one ear and out the other, just straight over my head kind of thing of like, okay, I didn't hear back, but I'm on to the next thing already because I'm trying to just churn up business. Yeah, so that was the hardest thing I think was being like, okay, well, how am I going to do that? And there weren't many tools out there, if any, that really kept you on track for that.
Yeah.
So it was really tough to kind of stay on with what I needed to get done to keep my business moving instead of, slowly moving backwards, going like, oops, sorry, I forgot to send that out, or,
Yeah.
whatever the case is. It was tough.
I think you bring up such a great point because sometimes we work so hard to get a lead, right? We do all the marketing and the lead comes in and then we just almost kind of give up on them too easily. A
Mhm.
lead doesn't respond back or something happens, they don't complete the quote or whatever when you wanted them to. We just begin, okay, they're done, right? They're not going to convert. Where follow up, I mean, the money's in the follow up, right? That's the old saying
Absolutely.
where follow up is so very important to because life happens for them, right? They don't do it on purpose. It's just life happens and they forget. And it's on us as the professionals to go back, follow up, see what's happening, see how we can help, see how we can move this lead forward into a paying client. And so that's I think, a fabulous example of, gosh, really kind of taking the professional hat and putting it on and saying, okay, how do we move this forward? Let's talk a little
Absolutely.
bit about 17 Hats. You've been a member of 17 Hats since the beginning. As we're doing these Cheers to 10 Years interview, we're turning 10. Talk to me about finding 17 Hats and how it's helped you in your business.
So I don't remember the exact way how I found 17
Mhm.
hats. All I remember was I had invoices that were through a piece of software on my Mac that didn't integrate with anything. And I was like, okay, cool. I can make these kind of interesting looking invoices. They look professional. Awesome. Sending emails, wouldn't know if anybody got it. Sending a PDF to people. Questionnaires, I didn't really do that. It was mostly just through an email.
Yeah.
Other documents were through like Dropbox or like a Word doc that you just got to email them. And it's like, it got so crazy to have all those different pieces that I was looking for something that was all in one, and nothing else really worked for me. And
Yeah.
then I found 17 hats, and I was like, oh, cool. All right, we've got contracts, invoices, questionnaires,
Yeah.
proposals, a to-do list. Like it was all this stuff that was all in there, and I said, all right, let me give this a shot. And I remember, I think I did like a 2-year plan in the beginning, and then I was like, oh, I'm just gonna like keep renewing. And then, when the specials came out, I'm like, I'm just gonna keep like doing whatever I can do to keep it. And it's just, the fact that the platform has grown so much and just expanded. And that's the thing that I tell people all the time is like, it's amazing how much is being added and updated, and that, 17 Hats listens to the people that are using their software. It's just grown so much that I can't imagine anything else. And anytime everyone's like, "Oh, I need a CRM, I need this," I'm always pushing 17 hats. I'm like, this is the only platform I've used for the last 9 years. So,
Oh, I love that.
and I won't move away from it. So it's crazy,
Oh,
but I love
I
it.
appreciate that. I love it. I love how you found so much value just in invoices as well, because so many people coming into 17 Hats think they need to use everything, right? And we hear a lot, I'm not ready for workflows. I'm not ready for automation. I'm not ready for all of that. But I think that there's so much value just in invoice and your contact and project details just organized. That in itself is so very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's talk about looking back, right? You've been in business, what did you say, 22 years?
Yeah, 22 years. I mean, I was 17 when I first started, which is crazy.
Amazing. You've been in business for 22 years. Most people burn out, 1, 3, 5, 10 years, right? So most people don't get to where you are in finding success. What are some of those pivotal moments? Like, how do you do it? How do you keep going? How do you push through? I've always said entrepreneurship, solopreneurship is a mountainous journey. You're going to have the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. There's going to be some amazing years and there's going to be some really crappy years. What's your secret? Or do you have a secret? Like, what is it that helped you push through all these years?
Well, in the beginning, it was fun for me. So, I mean, when I say I started my business in 2002, I mean, it was a part-time thing. It was a side kind of gig, but I was still like, I had a business name, I had an LLC. Um, and it was fun for me. So for me, it was more, I'm not really working, I'm enjoying what I do, right? So it's
Sure.
like that old saying of like, never work a day in your life. So
Yeah.
I always loved it. And then when 2013 rolled around, when I had to go full time with the business, and I'm like, this is my only source of income, this is it. I mean, it was the fact that, I mean, my wife and I were married 6 months, 5 months at that time.
Yeah.
And so it was like in the back of my head, it was, okay, I've got to support my wife. I've got to keep our apartment. We want to, save for a house. We want to start a family. And so I think she was the biggest part that was in the back of my mind. And even today, like, a couple of years ago, not after COVID, it was 2021 was, I think, my worst year so far.
Sure.
And I go back to my wife, I go back to my kids, and I'm like, I'm doing this for you guys. Like, as much as I don't like working sometimes as late as it is, or the fact that I
Yeah.
can't turn my creative brain off and I'm my most creative self at, 1 o'clock in the morning,
Yep.
I just look at it and I'm like, I'm doing this for them. Like it's, I love what I do, but that's what propels me forward. It's my family. And just knowing that like, if I don't work my butt off, we don't have what we have. So,
Yeah. It's your why. Like, I think every business needs to know their why. Why do they get up every morning? Why do they strive forward? Why do they push? And that really is what helps you keep moving and growing. Let's
mhm.
talk a little bit about who you were then versus who you've become now, because I feel like I talked to this a little bit on my podcast about if you like dating yourself, right? Like you have to really get to know yourself as a small business owner. If you don't know who you really are, you're having some identity crisis going, okay, am I creative? Am I a business person? Am I this or this? I think a lot of us creatives are lots of different things, kind of. That's what
Mhm.
really pushes our creative mind forward. But I think owning a business allows you to really you're going to see yourself in the best times. You're going to see yourself in the worst times. You're going to have mental struggles. You're going to have power struggles. I mean, it really forces you to get to know you and it forces you to push yourself out of your comfort zone. Talk to me a little bit about who you've had to become to be successful.
I mean, I think it's more for me, it's putting myself in the mindset of like, no one's coming to save me. Like, I've just got to do what I need to do. So I think that in that instance, I've just grown a lot just because I know that if I'm not innovating what I'm doing, I'm falling. Like, if I'm not rising, I'm falling. And so I'm always trying to like push, to that next level. So I'm always looking for growth opportunities. I'm always looking for learning new things. And so, Pipelines just came out with 17 hats and I'm like, I want to learn that and see like, how is that going to help grow my business? How is that going to help me, manage the workflows of what I work with in terms of clients? So I'm always looking for opportunities of like, what can I figure out that can be, automated, that can just help me do things without me, with me sleeping. What can a system do for me? Um,
Absolutely.
and so especially with like, ChatGPT and all these other AI things that are coming out, I'm always looking to be like, what opportunities do we have? And I try really hard not to look at anything as a negative. I always try and look at it as like, okay, this is an opportunity. Like, what are we learning? What are we
Yeah.
changing? What are we at? How do we have to pivot? Because I feel like, and I don't know if this was, if you had mentioned this in one of the last recordings that you had done, the webinars, but it's like, it's not these radical movements. It's these like minor pivots, these minor little changes just move you around. And when you look back at where you were and you look at where you are now, and I think back and I'm like, where did I think I was going to be in, 5 years, 10 years back then? I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm pretty far where I thought I was going to be just because you have those things that happen. You have those unexpected, business and personal challenges and struggles. And you realize that like all those little pivots, they moved you around. And sometimes you get
Yeah.
back where you want to go and sometimes you don't.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a big believer in the method of like 1% better every day, right? Like
Mhm.
sometimes there's things you need to do. It's going to make you better. It's going to make things more efficient. It's going to make more things more streamlined. Maybe it's going to help with awareness or brand or whatever. And you don't have to go do the whole brand overhaul. But if I can just adjust one thing and then another thing and then another thing, it's going to get you there a lot of times faster with more knowledge, more knowing who you are, more understanding of what you're doing versus doing the big jump without a lot of the foundation. So I love that. I feel like you just have to ride the wave sometimes
Mhm.
and see where it takes you and obviously be mindful of it and strategic. So yeah, I love that so much.
Yeah.
Um, as far as I feel like you're very growth mindset. Like I'm listening to you and you're very growth mindset, you're very learner mindset, investigative mindset, all things that I feel like are so very powerful for a growing business. Talk to me a little bit about growth mindset because growth is something I feel like people have such a hard time with. They think, marketing is almost this black box. I don't have a marketing degree. Marketing seems like it's so complicated. Talk to me a little bit about just growth mindset and what that means to you and your business.
So, and I struggle with this is like I'm still trying to grow my business. I'm still like, all right, I think I need, a personal
Everybody
assistant. I think I
struggles
need
with
this.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, and
everybody
it's
struggles with
so hard. It's really, I mean, it boils down to like I listen to a lot of like motivational speeches on Spotify, and I'm just trying to just keep that mindset of like if I'm not growing, I'm dying. Like I need to
it.
just keep doing that. So I guess it's a hard question because I still struggle with the growth mindset.
Yeah.
But it's something that I feel is just like I have no choice. I just have to put myself in that place. And there's rough days where I'm like, oh, all right, I'm at the bottom, or I feel like I'm at the bottom, and then I have to try and turn around and figure it out, and keep climbing the mountain.
Yeah.
It's just really hard to do.
I think that is, every tenure interview I've done, it's like everybody's just like, you just have to keep going. You just have to keep pushing.
Hmm.
Right. And I think for everybody's success, everybody who is successful will tell you, you just have to keep going. Right.
Yep.
Which I think is so important. Somebody's starting a business, they're new to business, they're just getting started in business, looking back after the success that you've had, what is some advice that you would give them for people, like I said, just new into business?
I would say just follow what your passion is and just make sure that your head is in the right place. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Um, money will come and go, but I feel like if you love what you're doing, if you're solving a problem, if you're helping people, if you're doing something for somebody that can't do it or doesn't have the resources, I feel like that's the biggest thing that I look at in my head is like when I look at businesses that I work with and agencies, and I'm like, okay, well, where are their struggles? Like, what can I help them with? And that's always where I am. So I'm always thinking about like, what can I do to help somebody? How can I elevate them? Um, and just kind of help them grow their business, which then in turn grows my business and helps me moving forward. And it's a win-win all around.
I love that, showing up to serve, that's so important. Well, Eric, thank you so much for joining me on our 10-year interviews and cheersing to 10 years. I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you being a member, being an ambassador, and sharing your story. If anybody wants to learn more about you or your services, where can they find you at?
So my website is sealightcreative.com. And then we're on Facebook and Instagram and all that, but website's the best place to go.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for joining us. And for everybody else, talk to you next time.